Okay. So, we have seen already one of the operators, how does it work, selection operator. Now, in our discussion we saw only one selection operator. There are other possibilities which have been suggested and which have been used. Okay. So, another operator called crossover operator is actually the process of sharing of genetic material. So, typically a child inherits some genes from his father and some from his mother. In the case of genetic algorithm, where both the parents are of the same kind, no male female, there also it will inherit some genes from this individual, this parent, and from some from that parent. And how does it happen? So, some genes in the DNA sequence come from this source, some come from that source. So, in this case, in genetic algorithm, you have the solutions in the form of strings. So, strings in the mating pool are randomly picked up in pairs, that is marriage. Okay. In each pair, a crossover point is randomly selected, either a crossover point or several crossover points. Okay. So, at each crossover point, genetic material is exchanged. Now, since in this case the number of individuals in every generation is kept same, population size is kept same across generations. So, in the selection operator we generated the random number n times, the same as the population size, okay? And that many individuals were selected for the mating pool. In fact, that many individuals or that many copies, okay, of individuals. So, it may be that out of the population size of 300, 185 contributed to this mating pool 300 times. Some of them contributed twice, some of them only once, and some of them did not contribute. Okay. So, we have taken now in pairs for sexual reproduction, okay, for this crossover to operate between two parents. Okay. So, each pair of parents therefore have to produce two offsprings in order to keep the generation size, population size same across the generations. So, across the crossover point or points, bits on the other side are exchanged with two new strings, that is two new offsprings, replacing the old ones or parents. So, for example, suppose this is one parent and this is another parent, and this was the randomly selected crossover point. So, at this crossover point, if you crossover, then out of the two offsprings, one will have 0 0 1 0 0 and then 0 1 0 1 1 0 1. So, that is this. The other one will have this part and then this part, that is this. So, these are the two offsprings. So, this is likely to promote combination of good features. Now, the logic is that these two individuals came to the mating pool, that means that their fitness must have been good. And if their fitness was good, then in this string somewhere there are features which was conferring. So, that advantage we would like to not only retain, but we would like to build upon that. So, maybe some advantage of this and some advantage of this together might come doubly advantageous in this individual and so on. Okay. So, that is the idea. So, this promotes combination of good features in the child population. It is possible that the other individual in the offspring population turns out to be pretty bad, but that is not a problem. In the next generation, that will not be selected for the mating pool. Okay. So, if a resulting offspring has lower fitness, it will automatically be eliminated during the next selection round. Better offsprings will survive and contribute to the next generation. Okay. So, this is like that great joke in which in a party one dancer who was very beautiful, she told George Bernard Shaw, what a great thing it will happen if I and you marry. Then our offspring, if the offspring receives your brain and my beauty, then understand how great he or she will be. George Bernard Shaw replied, that is why it will be dangerous if we marry. So, what will happen if it happens the other way around? That is, if he inherits or she inherits G.B. Shaw's beauty and that dancer's intelligence, then it will be a disaster. So, such offsprings will not survive, in the sense that they will not pass through the selection process in the next generation. Now, you could say that why not retain the old individuals themselves, if they were so good, if they were so fit? Yes, that also you can do, and that is why whether this crossover is to be done or not, or whether these two individuals are to be passed on from this generation to the next generation as it is, direct copy without crossover, that for that you give a probability, and that is crossover probability, P c. Okay. So, that means P c fraction of next generation will be developed through this crossover operator, and the remaining fraction will be retained as they are. Okay. So, this is the second operator. The third operator is mutation, which is to bring in more diversity from by putting some random changes in the string in the gene pool, which will hopefully bring some elements which were not there in the original population that you developed through random strings. If those additional new features turn out to be bad, they will not be passed, and if they are good, then they might survive and be successful in giving better individuals in later generations. For that, you keep another probability, that is mutation probability. This is typically kept very small. Okay. So, crossover probability you typically keep reasonably large, something like 0.7 or whatever. This is typically very small, maybe 0.05 or something like that, 0.03. So, mutation operation executed bit by bit on a string flips a 0 to 1 or vice versa with probability this. So, whether a string will be flipped or not, that will be decided by this probability that you give. Okay. So, whether a bit in a string will be flipped at all or not, and whether in that which string will be flipped, which bit will be flipped. Okay. So, it promotes better exploration of the search space by bringing in some extra diversity in the population that would not come from parents. Okay. In asexual reproduction, in the original amoeba type reproduction, mutation is the only possibility for diversity. Now, in sexual reproduction with crossover bringing in a lot of diversity, the load on mutation has gone very much down in the biological field. Okay. Here to begin with, it was sexual reproduction, and therefore, mutation operator could be kept very low from the very beginning. That is why you see bacteria mutate very quickly. Okay. And in human population, in cat population, mutations are not that common, and most mutations in more complicated organisms are unviable. They biologically do not make surviving kind of individuals, but some may be surviving, and among them also one or two may have terrific advantages, okay, so far as survivability or quality is concerned. So, you can have through mutations, possibly in a way you can understand it like that, that you can have geniuses or you can have freaks. Okay. So, mutation probability must be small, so that it does not overwhelm the genetic advantages. So, whatever advantage has been developed through 100 generations should not be suddenly spoiled in 2 generations by such mutations. So, mutation probability must be small, so that the good genetic material developed over several generations suddenly do not get lost. So, through a cycle of selection, crossover, mutation and successive evaluation of fitness of the strings or solutions, one generation gets over and we are back to the original status with a different set of individuals in the population. So, one generation is over, now we have the next generation. with that another round goes on, and how many rounds you will go on, that you decide in the beginning, which is called a generation size. Okay. So, through such generations, genetic advantages are expected to accumulate and finally converge to the maximum value of the fitness function, which means the optimum value of the objective, whether it is maximum or minimum, whatever has been the purpose. Okay. So, this in brief is the genetic algorithm, basic genetic algorithm. Now, if you have constrained problems, then typical way a genetic algorithm handles constrained problems is by penalty, maybe this or simply mod, okay, with constant large penalty parameter. Okay. And this will be insensitive to skewing, more or less insensitive to skewing, it has been found so, because of the large penalty value, because that is how the whole fitness business will go on. You are not taking derivatives, you see, and at the end of the whole thing you need to conduct a post processing with a local method. Okay. So, to check that the solutions are feasible and they are indeed optimal. Maybe at that stage you can check AKT conditions or whatever, which you should do with the final solution coming out of any method for that matter. Okay. Some people have also discussed the scaling of the fitness function by some numbers a and b after every generation. I mean, that is something which has been proposed, which has been used. Okay. There are other competing processes. For selection operator, there is a tournament selection. Then crossover, we have discussed one point crossover, there can be multi point crossover also. And now, there is another issue here. Originally, it was expected that if the function has several minima, then some of the solutions will converge near one minimum point, some of the solutions will converge near the other minimum point, but in actual practice an ordinary genetic algorithm did not operate like that. Say, let us take this example of a single variable function. So, you would expect that now that we have a population of solutions and finally, we expect the solutions to converge to the solution, the minimum, but if there is not the minimum, but several minima, then some of them will find themselves here towards a later generation, some of them will find themselves here, some of them will be found here and so on. That is what you would expect, but that does not happen, because indeed in earlier generation, intermediate some generations, some solutions are here, then some solutions are here, some solutions are here. That process, after it goes some way through, then what happens? In some generation, there may be a possibility that one fellow from here and one fellow from here are picked up in a pair, and then they produce two of them offsprings, one here and one here. And that is a big mess, because advantage of earlier generations is lost thereby. And so, 50 solutions of this zone and 20 solutions of this zone and 30 solutions of this zone and 80 solutions of this zone keep on sort of interfering with each other, and the convergence does not take place easily. Or if at some stage all of them find themselves in this locality, or a large number of them find themselves in this locality, then slowly it might happen that out of the population size of 300, 288 are settled here and other 12 are somewhere. Okay. So, that kind of a thing is possible, but then that is also a single minimum, you did not get all the minima. So, what is the trick? The trick was to ensure that the individuals of one minimum zone do not interact, do not mate with fellows from the other side, other minimum zone. and that means each that actually uses the biological concept of niching. Now, this niching is a concept which has to be understood a little carefully. You see, birds catch insects to eat. Now, there is a possibility that some birds who find that they can fly fast and they can get the insect very easily, they try to capture the market and pick up all the insects. Some other birds who find that they are not that fast in flying, they are not that powerful that they can quickly capture the insect, either the insect flies away or runs away, or the other competing bird picks up the insect. But then this, if this bird thinks that it can see better, it can see very well compared to others, then it might say that okay, so right now in the daytime I sleep, in the night time I will hunt when the other guys will be sleeping, and that is one thing. That is actually I am talking about speciation, but right now we were discussing niching. So, say grass develops chlorophyll. Grass has chlorophyll, so it develops glucose. Okay. That is one way of surviving. Deer cannot do that. So, deer eats the grass. Okay. Tiger eats the deer, and whatever is left over, the fox scavenges that. So, each of the individuals in this biological world has its own niche. So, if some kind of waste is developing somewhere and getting on piled up, then a class of organisms which can feed on that waste, that will be a niche in the environment. So, they will be actually doing one important job in the overall environmental balance. So, that is the biological idea of niche. In human population, you think of it like this. Mumbai is a great city where there are chances of very good jobs and very good communication, very good conveyance. Okay. Life is easy there. So, a lot of people go on flocking to Mumbai, and then there is so much competition in Mumbai that Mumbai does not look like such a good place anymore, and then Pune develops. Okay. So, similarly, Delhi gets extremely crowded, and so Gurgaon, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, these satellite towns develop, because they then start giving some advantages which Delhi does not give. Okay. So, these are different niches. So, the place which is not such a bad place, but which is not being preferred by most of the other people, because most of the other people are going somewhere else. So, why do not I go to this place which will be less crowded? Okay. So, this is the idea of niche, and that is how some solutions can be collected at these local zones also. So, this zone which is perhaps not so good as this, but reasonably good. Okay. So, those people will interact among themselves, they will develop their society in that region, they will love that town and they will call that town their own, they will be ready to die for that town. So, that niche develops, that society, that valley develops. Okay. So, algorithmically to do that, people define something called sharing function. Okay. That is, sharing function SD is 0 if the distance of it from other solutions is greater than sigma share, is far away. Okay. So, the fitness of this point is not shared by others, because other solutions, other individuals are far away. This is all my own. Okay. Now, this is the value of the sharing function if the distance is within sigma share distance. Okay. So, 1 minus d by sigma share. So, like this you design a sharing function for every solution, okay. And then you say that the number of solutions that are close to a particular solution in genetic distance like this they share their fitness like this. Okay. So, like this what will happen, that Mumbai fellows will have high fitness, but shared among too many people. Okay. So, this sigma share, this S d gets added. Okay. So, non-zero S d gets added together and this is shared like this. So, finally, it becomes low. Compared to that, Pune also may not have that bad, because it has less fitness value, but shared among less non-zero values from here. Okay. So, it also starts competing with Mumbai. So, that also turns out to be a good solution. And then beyond a point, you say that those solutions which are so far away from each other, we do not allow them to mate. That is, in the same pair of mating pool, you do not pick up two individuals from two sub pools which are too far away from each other, so far as this sharing distance is concerned, and that is speciation. So, these birds which started hunting in the night, over generations and generations, they had their eyesight more and more sharpened, because that was the selection advantage for them. So, individuals which had sharper eyesight, they survived, and they developed night vision capability over generations, because those who had better night vision capability, they survived and passed on more genes to their offsprings, okay, because they got more insects to eat to begin with, and they could fight off adversaries better. And slowly their habits, their habitats changed, so that they became a different species called owls. Okay. And the beyond a point, they could not mate anymore with crows, and that is speciation. So, when the differences between two groups of individuals become so much that they cannot mate with each other, then you say it is a new species now. So, this idea of speciation is also included in the genetic algorithm. So, when you do niching and speciation in the genetic algorithm, then you have a good possibility of subdividing the large population into a number of such niches, which over generations do not mate across one another. Okay. And thereby, at the end you will have a large number of solutions here, and a large number of solutions here, and a large number of solutions here, and so on. And therefore, by this mechanism you expect to solve multimodal problems and try to get hold of global minimum. So, this is one advantage which was given as a publicity material of genetic algorithms. And I in my whole life implemented genetic algorithm for solving only one problem, and there this was an issue. Okay. Niching and speciation was an issue, because we wanted to get hold of a large number of solution for the problem. Okay. However, I was not happy with the genetic algorithms operation, because we got the solutions in hand, but it was so much of computational cost, because you had to have population size large, so that all the solutions could be populated properly, and so many generations, so many so much population size handling, and I had actually really large number of solutions in that problem. So, I wanted something more efficient and more in my control. Okay. So, in which I could figure out better how things are happening, and this implementation I did in 2001, 2002, and after that in 2004 I really did the breakthrough in the multimodal optimization, and that we will cover in the next lecture. That is one simple idea which gives you all solutions, or most of the time almost all solutions, and in fact, you can get hold of all solutions in most of the cases we got, and within reasonable computational time. I will outline that method to you in the next class. Okay. Thank you.